And I'll hand over.
Go ahead. Today is our 14th day, and we are expecting last laboratory where full GHG presentation is going to happen by 5 different groups. Of course, first group is uh, made of 2 people, Dibakar Ji and Govardhan P. And both of you can start your session. Go ahead.
Well, good evening, everybody. We are going to present today on the case study net zero pathway for ESG Protect Manufacturing Corporate, ETMI. So the objective behind is, next slide, please. Objective to develop a GHG management plan for ESG Protect Manufacturing ETMI using a 5-step carbon accounting framework to achieve net zero by 2050 and 30% reduction by 2030. Next. So let us talk about the company. It is an industry which supplies energy efficient appliances, which manufactures, and its operations are spread over North America, where it is headquartered where 80% of emissions occur. Europe, 15% of emission occurs, and Asia Pacific region, Indonesia, Vietnam, and China. And during 2024 study, it was found that they are producing around 6 lakh units per year uh, and a revenue of $1.2 billion with 2,000 employees. 70% are located at headquarters and 30% are spread over the other countries. Now, while we accounting under GHG protocol of this company, we found that some challenges where 40% of missing data, supplier data, there is missing 40%. And no emission factor for Indonesia's grid for scope emission. And rapid energy demand growth in Asia, plus 7%, where this data is not available with the documents supplied to us. Now, deliverables are a GHG report and presentation evaluated on data accuracy, innovation, mitigation, planning, and scenario analysis. Now, step 1 is the boundary setting, as we all know. Defined under GHG protocol to include all scope 1, 2, 3 emissions under ATMS control. Scope 1 includes natural gas at facility A, diesel generators at facility B, and company fleet 100 watts, mixed fuel gasoline and diesel both. Scope 2 is purchased electricity across North America, Europe, Asia, Indonesia. Scope 3, major scope 3 are supply emission, raw material processing, logistics, import of raw materials, and distribution. Company commuting and remote work, which we have tried to calculate the emission. Product 5 lakh units, and product end life recycling. So it is about avoided emission. Now, geographic boundary is already I've spoken. North America, it is 80% of emission occur, which is primary based. Europe covers 15% of emission, and Asia 5%. Okay, next. The organizational boundary follows operational control approach, includes ETMI owned facilities, owned and leased facilities, fleet and controlled activities, covers significant upstreams, supply logistics, and downstream distribution, product use, and end of life cycle emission. Addresses 40% missing supply data with assumption and secondary sources. We have tried to do that. We have tried to address this. And we have always given priority to Tier 1 supplier engagement for feature accuracy. Now let us go to calculation, which is step 2. we have done a detailed analysis in the Excel sheet, which Goverdan will show. I'm just quoting the numbers. Total scope emissions is 3958.39 ton carbon dioxide equivalent, which covers 0.25% of total emission. Scope emission is 40,597, which is 2.06%. And scope 3 emission is 15,14,000 nearly, which covers around 97%. And total emission is 15,59,590. Now, let us go to step 3. If you want to see the Excel sheet, we can show the Excel sheet, how we have done the calculation. Now, let us go to baseline. Baseline year, we have taken 2024. Baseline emission is 15,59,000 plus. Target by 2030 is 30% reduction, which is around 4,67,000. And if we divide it to find out the annual reduction rate, it is 77,976 ton carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, strategy we have focused is process optimization, means the overhauling of the machine, energy efficiency, cleaner fuel substitution, and value chain collaboration. And long-term target is 2000 on a long-term target for 2050 is we are targeting net zero emission by 2050. Reduction target is 10,91,663. And annual reduction rate is 54,583. Strategy which we have focused is deep decarbonization technology. We have already taken the class. Scope 3 emission engagement, circular economy integration, take back as an IK, and nature-based carbon removal solutions like carbon offsetting, etc. Now, let us. I think I request Goverdan to continue with the rest of the slides.
Hello, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Govardhan, it is visible. Go ahead.
Yeah, my teammate has covered the starting 3 steps up to the baseline and target setting. Now I'll be taking you forward on business as usual emission projection. We have taken the baseline year as 2024, and
You
from
have
there
to just a minute. You have to start your camera, Govardhan, for next 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, just how to start the camera here. Yeah. And now, yeah, my camera. It's on.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to. I'll be dealing with step 4 and the step 4, which is business as usual emission projection and the mitigation strategies that has to be put in place to reduce the GHG emissions from the company. And to start that, we have taken the projection as 5% of the baseline year, which is where the baseline year is 2024, and all the up to 2023, the projections are made at a 5% growth, which is compounded from the baseline year. This encompasses both scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, and this is the total emissions, which is by 2023, by 2030, the total emissions will be nearly 20,89,905 tons of CO2 equivalents. So the short-term target is to reduce 30% of the total emissions of the baseline year by 2030, and the baseline emissions is what we have taken here. So to reduce 30% of the baseline emission it turns out to be 4,66,127 tons of CO2 equivalents. So in the next 6 years, to reduce 30% of these emissions, we have to reduce annually 75 annually. And in order to achieve the long-term target, which is 100% emission reduction by 2050, the baseline emissions are of 2024. So the main target for us to achieve is 0 tons of CO2 equivalent by, it should be carbon neutral by 2050. So in order to achieve that feat, we have to reduce this much amount of tons of CO2 equivalents. Hence, the annual reduction will be 54,583 tons of CO2 equivalent annually. And to come up mitigation strategies, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions mitigation strategies will be present here. We know from scope 1, which includes direct fuel combustion in the company premises and fuel combustion in its vehicle, the total emissions stand out to be close to 4,000 tons of CO2 equivalent, which contributes to only 0.25% of the total emissions. In order to reduce these emissions, I suggest the mitigation strategy which can be used is to replace the IC engines with electric vehicles, and these electric vehicles will be powered by renewable energy, and even the electrification of the inline process using renewable energy would be a very good strategy to reduce this scope 1 emissions. And in scope 2 emissions, we know that they are procuring electricity from various parts in North America and Indonesia. So, sorry, this number is wrong here. It is 40,000. The total emissions is 40,000 tons equivalent of CO2, in which contributes only about 2.25% of the total emissions. In order to reduce these emissions, there should be adoption of renewable energy such as solar, wind, nuclear, which has low emission, which are very low carbon intense electricity generation sources, which should be adopted in order to reduce scope 2 emissions. And when it comes to scope 3 emissions, scope 3 emissions account for total of 97%, 97.5% of total emissions. In order to reduce the scope 3 emissions, which include its value chain, upstream and downstream value chain emissions of the company, there should be a lot of mitigation strategies that has to be put in place, such as supply chain engagement, process optimization, innovation. And the main innovation includes that we have to collaborate with the supply chain suppliers, and we have to help them in optimizing their logistics and sourcing sustainable materials, and implying circular economy practices in its value chain. And it should also encourage the use of renewable energy in its entire supply and value chain. And the company should procure its materials from sustainable manufacturing, and it should promote the circular economy of the in a sense, recycling of the materials. It should prioritize low cost suppliers over other sourcing methods, and it should also mandate net zero commitment in its supply chain, so that when there is net zero commitment in its supply chain, both downstream and upstream supply chain will definitely reroute their process to meet these commitments. Then they should promote circular economic principles and encourage reduce, reuse, recycle kind of policies in its supply chain. And it should impose strict carbon pricing on the suppliers who follow unsustainable practices or who are responsible for more of its value chain emissions. And it should also streamline transport for the supply of finished goods and raw materials, in order that they minimize the emissions in their transport during the transportation. With this,
Well, after that, what carbon emission remains, that will be offset by the carbon offset project like plantation, etc.
I'm done.
Okay, good. So, anybody has any question on the carbon emission? Okay, fair. Let's go to the next batch. You can stop sharing your screen. And who's going next? Which batch?
So group 2 can, group 1,
Okay, go ahead.
Bhumika and Praveen
Okay, go
can
ahead.
go next. Okay, sir.
You can share your screen and
I'm sharing my screen, sir.
Praveen will start first, sir, and later on I will continue.
Is my screen visible, sir?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, so now we will be covering net zero pathway for ESG Pro uh, Tech Manufacturing Incorporation. And the company profile is that it is a global leader in energy efficient operations, and it is based out of North America. Its headquarters are in North America, and it has a wide global presence, which includes North America, Europe, Asia, and in Asia, specifically Vietnam, China, and Indonesia. To be precise, then ownership model is a mix of owned and leased operations. It has a total employee strength of 2,000 employees. 70% are on-site based, and 30% operate via hybrid or hybrid and remote mode. Then it has an annual revenue of $1.2 billion, and this is based of 2024 calendar year, and the annual production is 6 lakh units of the equipments coming onto the boundary. The organizational boundary, what we have considered, it's all its operations, including its manufacturing units based out of in North America, Europe, and Asia, and its distribution channels as well. And then finally, the equipments are sold out, and the uh, equipments are used by the consumers. So scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, all we have considered. And the approach we have selected is operational control approach, because the company uh, uh, has operational control over its manufacturing facilities, raw material from where it is procuring. So they have an influence of on the uh, on the raw material supply as well, and the storage houses, as well as its distribution side also, it has a control. So we have selected operational control, and it aims to reduce scope 1, scope 2 emissions to the greatest extent possible, and also covers scope 3 emissions in its net zero strategy. So, coming out to the scope 1 emissions, it includes stationary combustion from natural gas, which is used in facility A, diesel fuel consumption from generators at facility B is included, then mobile emissions from its owned fleet vehicles, which operates across North America. So this is also included in the scope 1 emissions. Coming on to the scope 2, it covers electricity purchased across ETMI's owned and leased facilities in North America, Europe, Vietnam, China, and Indonesia. And in the scope 3 emissions, they are covering category 1 purchase goods and services, the emissions from sourcing aluminum, steel, and raw materials. From category 4, emissions from third party logistics and supplier side transport, it is covering. Category 6, business travel, so the employees which are commuting via flights and rental cars, so those are being used by the employees. Category 7, employee commuting. Category 9, downstream transportation distribution. Category 11, sold use of sold products. Category 12, end of life equipments. So coming on to the scope 1, direct GHG emissions. So this comprises of direct fuel combustion at ETMI's facilities and its owned fleet vehicles. So so they have consumed at the facility A diesel, and for the diesel we have the data 3 lakh therms per year. So using the emission factor, we have calculated 1590 tons of CO2 equivalent for the facility B. Again, for the diesel generators, the diesel was used, and we have calculated the GHG emissions produced from the diesel usage, so 48.24. So from natural gas, GHG emissions was 1590. From diesel, the GHG emissions are 48.24 tons of CO2 equivalent. So from company-owned fleet vehicles, so 70 trucks uh, are used by the facility, and 1786.75 tons of oil equivalent has uh, has been calculated. So 30% trucks are gasoline based, and the GHG emissions from the gasoline used in these 30 uh, trucks are calculated to be 533.4 tons of oil equivalent. So total scope 1 emissions are calculated as 3958.39 tons of CO2. Coming on to the scope 2 indirect GHG emissions, this comprises the purchased electricity. So at the North America headquarter level, so they have used 40,000 megawatt hour of electricity using the emission factor of 0.45 kg CO2 equivalent per kWh. We have calculated 18,000 tons of CO2 equivalent, and in Europe 5,000. So Europe, so 80% operations are being done at North America level, 15% operations are being done at Europe level. So for Europe, the emissions came out to be 1,500 tons of CO2 equivalent. For Vietnam, it came out to be uh, for Vietnam, for Asia Pacific region, 5% operations are there. So 5,760 tons of CO2 equivalent for Vietnam. China, it is 8,060, and for Indonesia it is 717 tons of CO2 equivalent. So total scope 2 emissions came out to be 40,597 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Coming on to the indirect GHG emissions for the category 1 purchase goods and services, aluminium is being procured, and 500 tons is the quantity for that. So we have calculated 4,000 tons of CO2 equivalent for aluminium based GHG emissions. For steel based GHG emissions, it is 750, and the raw material spent was $10 million. So we calculated it as 12,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. And the raw materials, uh, for the raw materials processing, the GHG emissions was mentioned in the case, so 15,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. So coming on to the category 4, raw material for the raw material transport, 200 trucks were used, and they were covering 50,000 miles. So we calculated the GHG emissions, and it came to be 17,016 tons of CO2 equivalent. Coming on to the business travel, for the flights taken by the employees, GHG emissions were accounted to be 6 tons of CO2 equivalent. For hotels, 1,000 nights spent by the employees, 25 tons of CO2 equivalent was calculated. For rental cars taken by the employees, GHG emissions came out to 1.8 tons of CO2 equivalent. For the employee category, so private vehicles, uh, for the private vehicles, GHG emissions came out to 1,600.2 tons of CO2 equivalent. For public transport, especially the trains, because we have assumed that uh, uh, 2,000 employees, uh, that we have assumed that some people are traveling by trains, and the miles per day we calculated it using, since 1 hour travel was mentioned, so we calculated the average of average across the whole portfolio, that 15.21 miles are covered in a day, and the calculations resulted in the 47.72 tons of CO2 equivalent. For some people who were working remotely, so for the 20% workforce, since they are not commuting, so we have considered it 0 tons of CO2 equivalent. For the category 9, downstream transportation and distribution, for the GHG emissions for 3PL transportation related emissions, the GHG emissions have been calculated as 638 0.13 tons of CO2 equivalent. For the category 11, use of the sold products. So 5 lakh units were sold out of 6 lakh units. And so we have considered 5 lakh units since these were sold into 1200 kilowatt per hour. So the emissions came out to 2,40,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. Life treatment. So the products were recycled by almost like 1.5% were recycled. So we calculated like minus 750 tons of CO2 oil. CO2 equivalent will be reduced from the GHG emissions. And total scope 3 emissions came out to 2,90,335. So this shows that there is a significant contribution from the scope 3 emissions compared to the scope 1 and scope 2. Coming on to the business as usual case, so we calculated that the business will grow as per 5% per annum growth, and in Asia there will be a growth of 7% per annum. However, a uniform 5% global growth rate we have applied across all the regions and scope for basically consistency. So for 2025, the projected emission calculated, the total emissions calculated are 3,635.45 tons of CO2 equivalent, and we have incremented it by 5% for the year 2025 because these calculations were of 2024. So for the 2030 target, we incremented it by 5% for complete 6 years, and the total emissions came out to 4,48,785. For 2050, we calculated it as 11,90,762 tons of CO2 equivalent. So we calculated for entire 2030 and 2050 emissions. Then the key insights were that the projections follow a exponential growth trend under the business as usual case, and emissions may more than triple by 2030 without mitigation. So mitigation steps are very much necessary, and we have considered 5% growth, even though there is a 7% growth in the energy emissions for the Asia continent. So considering this aspect, we can see that the growth is exponential, and the mitigation steps are very much necessary. So I will now hand over to my colleague, my partner, Bhumika. Bhumika, you can now present and take it forward.
Yeah, sure. So there was also a term given for that if CEO considers its expansion in India, there was, we were also given the emission factor for the energy, only electricity. So we have considered that, and business as usual emission projections for global with India expansion. Already Praveen explained that how the emission will increase exponentially for all the global current present sites. But if in India also there is expansion done, then how they will increase. So the key insights are, even though if it is the expansion, then 0.85 kg CO2 equivalent per kWh is the highest reported emission factor till the from all the 5 sites we are given. The emission will be very high. Then if targeted if India's addition, then total GHG emission in 2030 rise by 10,848 tons of CO2 equivalent. This is only for the energy sector, where we have considered that India may use on an average 10,000 megawatt of electricity per year, considering the Asia, Vietnam, China, and Indonesia. They are using total of around 12,000, from 8,000 to 12,000. We have on an average considered India's consumption as 10,000. So the exponential growth will be like this, that the total global emission will be over 1.17 million tons of carbon CO2 equivalent, which will be approximately tripling the tripling the current emissions, and the 28,000 plus tons of CO2 equivalent will be increased if India also is considered in the expansion. So these are the graphs where we can see that percentage of what are the percentage of GHG emissions from scope 1, 2, and 3. So here we definitely understand that scope 3 holds the major accounting for the emissions from all the categories mentioned, and scope 1 has the least. Scope 2 also contribute up to a certain level, and if we consider region wise, then region-wise, North America is contributing to a higher level, and our scope 3, we weren't given any region specific, so we had considered it for all the sites total. So definitely, yes, North America has major contribution in the emissions from scope 1 and 2 with respect to other sites. So now target setting and mitigation plan. So we have a very ambitious target for GHG reduction goal with respect to 2024 calendar year. 2030 we target 30% reduction, and by 2050 we target to achieve net zero. Action plan implementation framework spanned across following initiatives. We from equipment manufacturing, that is from scope 1, what we propose as the mitigation strategies are, we propose that we can use hybrid electric vehicles by introducing 25% new vehicles each year from 2025 onwards. And so, so the 100% fleet vehicles that use gasoline and diesel as their fuel can be replaced by 2028 to hybrid electric vehicles, which accounts to the reduction of GHG emission. So 25% till then, what we can do, if we introduce 25% new vehicles in 2025, but 75% will be running still on diesel and gasoline, till then we can use alternate biofuels like biodiesel, which has lesser emissions than diesel engine. Then emission control devices to track emissions of the fleet vehicles. We can use such devices which readings we can take daily, and we can incorporate other technologies or identify where the emissions are higher. Then for the manufacturing side, if the equipments are old, of course their emission will be higher, so we can introduce new equipments with a good technology base which can help us reduce GHG emissions. Then scope 2 emissions for the electricity consumption, total of we introduce on-site renewable energy of 50,000. Total of 110,000 megawatt of electricity is consumed from all the sites currently as of 2024. So we plan to introduce on-site renewable energy of 50,000 megawatt through solar panels. So these are the introduction of solar panels and its running efficiency to start by 2029. So enter into long-term contracts to buy electricity directly from renewable energy generators. For 2025, we can start with smaller amount, 10,000 megawatt, followed by 26, and 27 we can increase it. So from 20,000 to 20,000, 28, 20,000, and from 2029 onwards, we can continue with 60,000 megawatt from purchase party agreement. Then we can upgrade energy efficient equipment, LED lighting, heating, ventilation, and air condition optimization, and smart building systems. Conduct energy audits to identify and address inefficiency. When we introduce all these systems to control the GHG emission, we can quarterly or monthly conduct energy audits, so we can identify where the system is working properly and where the system needs a reconsideration. Then energy management system and IoT enabled monitoring to track and optimize power usage. Energy management system can help us reduce the energy consumption and power usage can be optimized using Internet of Things enabled monitoring systems. So now for the value chain emissions, we can engage our supplier, as already it was reported in the case that 40% of supplier data was missing. So that is the biggest challenge we face in most of the scope 3 emission calculation, that suppliers do not provide proper data, or they don't even have the tracking of such emission. So we can engage them into the programs. We can encourage them to measure, report, and reduce their emissions. Then we can collaborate through capacity building, such as trainings and trainings to the supplier, whereby we can also aware them why this is important and how it can help them reduce their GHG emission and benefit their business. Then suppliers with the, and also also inculcate them in the decision making of the organization GHG goals. Engagement with logistic partners to transition to low emission fleets. So we can also encourage our logistic partners to use the hybrid or electric vehicles, which can help us lower the emissions. Optimization of transportation routes, as we know, in countries, especially in the Asia Pacific countries, where we really face traffic issues. So we can do it through rail or use electric vehicles, or we can change the route where we don't face much traffic, and the emissions can be controlled up to a certain extent. Emphasis on product life cycle management, including design for recyclability, reuse, and material recovery. We can do this product life cycle study. Then we can introduce the new designs where it uses more materials which are recyclable, and also we can recover materials from the appliances like aluminium and other earth metals. Design of energy efficient products that reduce emissions during the usage phase, where we can already we are into the energy efficient appliances. We can also reconsider the design process, try to reduce their emissions up to 10 to 15%. Try to reduce their consumption of electricity and energy up to 10 to 15% in the initial years, and over the time we can also increase that percentage more. Implementation of virtual meetings, sustainable travel policies, and remote work arrangements. As we have seen that 20% of the employees are already working remote. So if possible, then we can increase it from 20 to 40, considering that they don't have any role to play on the on-site job. Like corporates can be done from work from home. Secondly, if the meetings are, if possible, we can also handle client meetings and other stakeholder meetings virtually, unless and until it is most necessary to travel. And sustainable travel policies like traveling can be, we can go for travel within, if it is within the cities, then we can use companies' vehicles. So the personal vehicles are not used, and those emissions are less. Encouraging public transportation, carpooling, and low emission commuting options for employees. Like you can either we can encourage our employees, all the employees, even 60% are using their own vehicles to use the public transportation, or options, or we can encourage them to switch to the electric vehicles or renewable energy using vehicles, or hybrid. Engaging with portfolio companies and clients to decarbonize finance emissions. We can Praveen, can you explain this point?
Yeah, so basically, the companies which so we can invest on such projects which can help us in reducing carbon emissions. Basically, this is that.
Yes, investing in sustainable
Bhumika,
projects
yeah,
for the long term.
please fasten it a bit.
And development of systems for accurate scope 3 data collection and reporting, which is the biggest challenge. So we can develop a system, a proper system for to have maximum data possible. And as already I have told, life cycle assessment tools and supplier specific emission factors we can leverage so that we have proper accuracy of the data. Key technical challenges and solutions. We have already proposed a mitigation plan, but of course there are going to be challenges for that. So here it is. Data collection complexity, as already we discussed, there is very difficulty in collecting accurate and complete verifiable emission data, especially for the scope 3. So we can solution is that we can standardize digital platforms for data exchange. Then encourage suppliers to adopt GHG protocol or CDP reporting frameworks. As already I mentioned, that we can encourage them how it can benefit their business as well. Lack of emission accounting standard. We have a very variable standards, reporting standards. So there is no harmonized approach for scope 3 emission categories. We can adopt proper frameworks like GHG protocol, development of sector-specific guidelines to improve consistency and comparability. There are many frameworks and guidelines that are available. We can use a standardized or nationalized guidelines as well. Technological barriers in supply chain. Suppliers may lack the necessary technology to measure or reduce emissions. Yes, because most of the suppliers they don't have they just supply the material, so they don't have a proper system. So we can provide them assistance in managing and channelizing their system. Also help them with capacity building programs, training, and other factors. Product lifecycle emissions. High emissions from product use or end of life stages due to inefficient design or lack of recyclability. So as we have discussed it, we can use eco design principle, energy efficiency through R&D and carbon footprint assessment. How we can monitor and report others GHG emissions and mitigation plans. So governance. So we have we can create a internal task force and under the sustainability committee for the net zero. Assign clear rules across the departments for collecting the data and other energy efficiency monitoring. Define escalation and reporting structures up to the board level. The higher management should be involved in such activities. Integrate GHG management into corporate strategy, procurement, and operations. Of course, we have continuously, I have been saying, supplier management system. We can help them integrate the GHG management system into it. And operations and corporate strategy, it is a company's role, so we definitely can do it without any challenges. Data management system. We can use smart facility management tools to report all emissions on monthly basis. Either we can use softwares for every department where they have to put a monthly or daily data. Review the input details at facility or corporate levels. Every quarterly or bi-monthly, all the reviews should be taken into consideration. And if there is any performance log, we can definitely imply strategies to incorporate it. We can do internal audit every time and also partner with external audit.
We are crossing our time.
Emission reduction target monitoring against short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. We will track it. Then key performance indicators with respect to baseline. From baseline, we can also define indicators where we can identify if the performance of the mitigation plan is proper or not. Reporting and disclosures. We can annually report emissions as per GHG protocol, GRI standard, TCFD aligned disclosures with standardized standards. Then consider third-party verification for enhanced creditability. You can hire a consultant. Continuous review and improvement. Annual emission footprint reviews. So whether we are able to achieve our targets or not, reassess boundaries and methodologies if required. Emission factors and supplier data quality, how much there is improvement in the supplier data quality from the baseline year, and updating report with its latest changes in the reporting framework. Every time how much, whatever review we do, we should update it in the reports. Thank you.
Okay. So who is going next?
I think we are going up.
Go ahead.
I'm sharing a website.
Yeah.
Okay. So hello everyone for the last lab session again. This presentation is by me and Amit. So we are trying, as net zero architects, net zero pathway architects, we are trying to create what kind of strategy. We are trying to understand what kind of strategies and mitigation approaches they can use. ESG Protect Manufacturing Corporation. Next slide. Yeah. So here we'll be talking about the boundary settings, emissions calculations, and how we are targeting the 2030 and 2050 target settings, BAU emission projection, and mitigation plan. Next slide, please. So we have most of the data for the 2024. So our reporting year and baseline year would be 2024. Reporting organization is ESG Protect Manufacturing. Business areas, it is an energy efficient appliances business. We don't know what kind of energy appliances, but energy efficient appliances. Reporting standard, we are using GHG protocol. So for the organizational boundary, we are using operation control because all of the ETMI is a owned and leased structure they have. As we are using operational boundary, we will be doing all scope 1, 2, and 3 categories GHG emissions calculation. Next slide. Yeah, so we see that it has its headquarters in North America and has a significant presence in Europe and Asia, but in owned and leased areas are in North America, Europe, China, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Okay, next slide. So operation for scope 1, we are talking about direct fuel emission, combustion and of fleet vehicles, which are both run in diesel and gasoline. For the scope 2, we only have data for the purchased electricity from the grids, from all the grids of headquarter Europe and Asia. In scope 3, we are dividing it in two parts: upstream and downstream. Upstream, we are doing in four categories: purchase goods and services, raw material, logistic, business travel, and employee community. For the downstream, we are three categories: product distribution, product use phase, and product end of life. Next slide. Yes, this all the data we were approached as we discussed. We are doing it in the tiered data quality, tiered data in for the third scope. As for in the tiers, as we are given different data for each systems, we are using hybrid data, a hybrid hybrid method for calculating the scope 3 emissions. Next slide. Okay, so there were few data gaps which we saw as Indonesia's electricity emission factor was not given. We decided to use it from official data online and try to find it and absorb and did an approximation from the Vietnam. Tier 3 steel purchase, we had not, we don't have any proper emission factor. We applied a 2.5 ton per COTE as default. Employee train commuting, we assume 50 kilometers per day as from seeing how much in North America each employee is traveling through trains. And then end of life for recycling, we did understand that they have 10% recycling, but 10% of 5 lakh units, it says. But we don't know, as we are given of emission factor of 1.5 ton CO2e. So we don't know what is the weight of units. So we can't really understand what is the recycling, what is the exact recycled emission, avoided emissions we have. So we suggest from the next time we have a proper LCA, life cycle assessment and bill of materials, so that we can properly estimate avoided emissions. As of remote work energy, also we don't have the energy usage in home offices, so that's why we have excluded this in this year 2024's inventory. Next slide. Scope 3 direct emissions we see for natural gas, diesel, and fleet vehicles. Here we see that for the fleet vehicles, it is the highest number of emission in Scope 1 of 2,320 ton CO2e. Next slide. Okay, so for indirect emissions, we had purchase electricity for North America headquarters office, Europe, Vietnam, China, and Indonesia. Vietnam, as we were discussing, Indonesia, as we were discussing, we have taken emission factor from similarly to Vietnam. So here we see electricity emission of 40,000, and out of which most of the emission is from North America headquarters office. Next slide. Okay, so now here we come for the Scope 3 indirect emissions. Here, as discussed before, we have used all the TS hybrid data collection method and calculated all of the data. And so business travel is 32.8 ton, product distribution is 638, employee commuting is 1,775, raw material transport is 17,017 tons, purchase goods, it's 16,750 tons, and the highest we see is in downstream product use phase of stored units of 2,87,200. So it says that the 80% of Scope 3 emissions, more than 80% of Scope 3 emissions is at the stage of when in the downstream of product use phase. And product end of life we have excluded, as we discussed before, recycling data is not properly given. Here we can see in terms of a graph, how we can see how much difference it is there in terms of product use amount of emissions we see. Next slide. Okay. At the end, see for the Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions, we see all of it as presented in the pie graph. Scope 1 has only 1% of emissions in total system, Scope 2 has 11%, and Scope 3 has 88%. So our grand total emissions for the base year of 2024 is 3,67,991 tons carbon dioxide equivalent. Now I'll hand over to Amit for further discussions.
Thank you, Avipsa. Yeah, I will be going through one or two slides back just to give us some highlight on that. Just a minute. Yeah, for the Scope 1, as we see the major area coming from the fleet vehicle. So why I'm highlighting that will be impacting showcasing the mitigation plan that we will be proposing. Right? And then coming to the Scope 2, majorly the headquarter is using the major energy chunk. So that aspect we will also covering. And the Scope 3, it's basically use sold products. So strategy has to be aligned with this area, because these are the major factors where the emission is happening, especially for the, if you see the sold product within the 80% of the Scope 3 in total, Scope 1 and Scope 2, and within Scope 3 also it is coming more than 80%. So it's a major chunk of the emission that is happening throughout the emission profile of the company. Now coming to the next stage, the baseline and the target setting. So the baseline that is coming for the year to 2024, because it's the data that is referred here, it's coming out 3,67,991 tons of CO2, and we have a target set for the reduction of the 30% in absolute term for 2030. And the net zero has to be for the 2050. So all the targets have been set across all the three category scopes, Scope 1, Scope 2, and the whatever the category of the Scope 3, it is considering that all covers under the plan of the reduction, the target 2030 or the 2050. And then coming the business as usual case, basically targets and the emission projections. We taking the basis of the 2024 and the estimating for the 2030. So we took the 5% annual business growth, the 7% for the Asia, that is for the 5% of the overall boundary of that project that is coming below the 1%. That's why average 5% has been taken for the whole organization, not the 7% for the Asia regions. So that's why we have considered the average value of that. So in that aspect, the value that's coming for the reduction for the 2030, what would be the emission rate in that 2030 would be 4,93,000. So it has increased from initial to 2030 is a exponential increase is there. So the reduction challenge is also there. And if we see in the graph, it's from base, it is going up to 5 lakh tons, and we have to reduce to the 2,50,000 tons. So if we calculate on the basic terms, taking the growth also 5% and the reduction coming with the 6%, the cumulative effect has to be by the 11%, it has to reduce by the 2030. And coming up to the mitigation plan and strategy. For the scope 1 and scope 2, majorly we see in the scope 1 and scope 2, we have a two major area, the energy consumption and the fleet transportation. So for the energy consumption aspect that we are looking at, the on-site renewables installation could be done for the solar plant can be set up, or the power purchase agreement kind of things with the clean energy development projects, or the energy efficient systems could be installed after going through the process. So fixtures of the electrical items could be energy efficient. The HVAC system has to be enhanced in a way that it consuming less energy. Then coming to the fleet decarbonization strategy, in the scope 1, we see that the more than 50% the energy emission is coming from the fleet aspect. So that fleet decarbonization strategy has to be implemented, because and in that way it's running on mostly diesel and the gasoline. So that has to be changed with either the electric or the hybrid model or the low carbon fuels if it is possible for the organizations. And you can also go with the fuel substitution, maybe with the biofuel and other fuels. Synthetic fuels are also coming, so they can go ahead with that systems. Then coming that was basically the hard part of the mitigation plan. Then coming to the soft part, basically the behavioral change also has to be, because the scope 3 emission is majorly coming from the product use, and the some of the business travels are. For the business travels, definitely they can whenever not necessarily they can go for the virtual meetings, or they can favor the trains, or if possible, if not possible, they have to do the business travel. They can use to offset that apart with the purchasing the offset credits. For the employee commuting, they can do the remote working mostly, but getting the data is very difficult for the remote working. But whenever they are planning to strengthen their data collections, they can promote the remote working environment within the organizations. They can incentivize the carpooling systems, the cycle, public transport, or the cycling can be encouraged, or the installation the EV charging station that will encourage the employee to get a new EV vehicle for themselves instead of going for the IC vehicles. So installing the EV charging stations could be a major boost for the reducing the employee commuting. Then coming the carbon intelligence system has to be implemented within their organizations, so that these softwares will be capturing the data and then analyzing and giving the data in a way that it will be having a good data integration, and with that data integration, they can have a good decision-making capabilities. They can also go with the research and development for the low carbon technologies, especially for the HVAC or the another area where they are consuming the major energy aspect. They can go with the low carbon tech, and also they can set up an R&D division within their organizations also. Then coming the major aspect that we are discussing, the product that is being used is covering the most of the emission aspect. If we take the overall emission profile, it would be more than 65% of the total emission that is coming from only this segment, the use of the product. So that's why we are majorly focusing on this area. The consumer behavior has to be changed also within that prospect. And this can be encouraged through the smart labeling on the product, basically giving the CO2 rating, or the QR code linking to the usage tips, how they can use their appliances, what would be optimum use of the profile. Also, the mobile feedback apps comparing the energy use with the benchmarks. And the retail campaign, maybe we're doing whenever they are selling the product in the market, they can go with the retail campaigns, so use the smart, safe CO2 kind of branding of the products, and the community awareness program could also be done from their side. Also, coming from the renewable energy adoptions, they can go with the co-marketing with the organizations who are already working in the green segment, so that the joint initiative can provide a rebate for both the entity whenever they are coming on the mutual corporations. Also, the off-peak energy use to be encouraged. Basically, what we see in the recent times, that especially for the EV segment, or wherever the energy consumption is more, so the peak time rates are higher than the off-peak times. So that will be also incentivizing the consumers. Apart from that, the load would be also minimizing on the energy consumption sides. Eco mode usage, the default to all the, because they are working in the electronic segment of machines, electronic appliances, so that can be set up to the default to the energy saving mode, so that whenever they are any user is using that appliances, it will start with the energy saving mode. If they require much power, then they can use for the modes also. In the maintenance repairs, because the maintenance repair will enable this appliances to be used for the longer period of time. That will extending the lifetime of the product. So that DIY guides could be given to them, bundled with the service programs, and the standby waste reduction programs. So the basically it could be auto set of technology could be given to the product. So it could be timer based, or the kind of a user based system, so that it can automatically set off. Now coming to the major aspect of the data collection, we are facing the challenge. So the strengthening the data collection process, how we are going to do that, basically the supplier engagement, the mandate international disclosure framework within their at minimum of the 80% of the supplier base. Also the integration with the procurement process. They can have a carbon reporting fields in the purchase orders, so that whenever they in future they are going with the purchase process, they will be having that field, so that whoever the purchase officer or whoever is purchasing the material, they will be have a understanding that this kind of data would be required in future, so that we can have to collect those data. And the life cycle assessment can also be done for the products, or especially for the high impact products or the materials that are being used. Employee activity survey, because they are remote working employees also, so their data is not being collected properly. So the employee survey could be conducted. Based on that, these data could be compiled. Digital dashboard could be set up, so that the real-time tracking of the energy transport or the data that is being used could be seen through that process. And coming to the overall net zero roadmap, basically the 2024 is the base year. There we have it, more than 350,000 tons of CO2 being emitted. So the quick start could be they can start with the solar pilots or the fleet trial with the different different fueling systems. And if the pilot goes in a good way, then they can go with the full-fledged implementation. And with that implementation, 2030 they can achieve the 30% reduction, so that they can come down to around 250,000 tons of CO2. And within that framework, the already implemented, they can go ahead with that recycling or the circular economy, product redesign, because especially the product is in the value chain that is emitting the major area of the emissions. So that the product redesigning and the recycling could help them to reduce further their GHG emissions. And the carbon, if that is not sufficient, then they can go ahead with the carbon removal or the offset of the program, so that by 2050 they can go ahead with the net zero target. Thank you. Any questions?
Any question by anyone? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Who has that question? Okay, in that case, third group.
Sir, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Peneth.
So I'll be sharing screen and Nitya will be presenting.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Nitya Chaudhary with Vineet presenting this report. They're supposed to be here, but in the last moment he got stuck on something. So I and Vineet is presenting this presentation. So can you please change the slide?
Is it visible?
Yes, yes. So to start this presentation, first with the company profile. So ETMI is a global leader in energy efficient appliances and it is operational globally. It is operating globally, majorly in North America. Headquarters is also in North America and of course in Europe and Asia, including Indonesia, China and Vietnam, it is operating. The production is around 6 lakh units per year, and the revenue of the company is $1.2 billion as per the report of 2024. And there are total 2,000 employees are working in the company, 70% on-site and 30% hybrid and remote mode. The next, the objective of this presentation is to, the company wants to achieve net zero target by 2050 with the small time target that is 30% reduction by 2030. Long-term goal is to achieve net zero by 2050. So methodology which we are approaching in this presentation is first with the boundary setting, and then we will calculate the emission. We are considering 1, 2, and scope 1 and scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And baseline set a baseline year and also set a target to reduce the emission. And BAU emission projection will discuss in this presentation, and then we'll discuss the mitigation plan. So boundary setting as per the case study and the organizational boundary which we have selected as operational control, and the geographical scope is North America, Europe and Asia, and the sources are facilities, fleet, purchase electricity, supply chain and product life cycle. So in scope 3, we have calculated like the emission done by the natural gas, diesel generators and fleet vehicles. In fleet vehicles, both are separated, calculated. Diesel vehicle and gasoline vehicles are calculated separately. And the total emission of scope 1 is around 4,000. And in scope 2, we have calculated the purchased electricity for all locations from the grids. It includes the North America, which is the major emission. The major emission is from North America, then Europe, Vietnam, and China, Indonesia. Purchase energy is also calculated in this, although the data is estimated for the Indonesia. But the total emission test done by the scope 2 under the scope 2 is around 40,600 tons of CO2 per year. Then in third emission, we have actually, calculated both upstream and downstream. This is the approach, both upstreams and downstream. Just give me 1 minute, sir. Someone is there. Just give me 1 minute. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for this interruption. So in this, we have In this, we are calculating the emission from the upstream and downstream both, and we have included the purchase goods and services in this, and raw material logistic and business travel, employee commuting, and product distribution, product use phase, and product end of the life. And for this product end of the life calculation, we uses both the method. Smart monitored units are calculated separately in this, and the total emission done in the scope 3 is 3,37,487. So the total emission here is the by scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 is 3,82,000 tons per year, tons CO2 per year. So this is the calculation, and from here Vineet will continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Nitya. So hello everyone, I'll be taking the baseline target setting and the BAU and then the mitigation plan for the company. So for the baseline year, we have taken the 2024 as our base year. The 30% reduction target, which is the short-term or interim target for the company, which showcases 1,14,613 metric tons carbon dioxide equivalent of reduction in next 6 years to be achieved. And the long-term target for the company is to achieve zero target by 2050. Now for that, we have as we all know, we have suggested two techniques for them. Like they should publicly announce the GHG reduction target so that they can enhance the transparency and accountability of their own targets. And then they should ensure monitoring and reporting of the progress for the interim as well as the long-term goals. Next, we'll be talking about the BAU emission projection. For the forecast emission growth under a BAU scenario of 5% annual increase, we are getting 5,11,978 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in next 6 years in as of end of 2030. Now, if we go model till 2050, we'll be getting 13,58,431 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, for the reduction target, we have 1,14,613 metric tons of carbon dioxide, which needs to be reduced. And if carbon dioxide is being reduced, then the actual emission in 2030 should be 2,67,432 metric tons as the carbon dioxide equivalent for that year. Now, the required annual reduction rate to meet this target is 5% per year. And you can go through the formula we have for the reduction rate, the reduced value, carbon dioxide value divided by the number of years, that is 6 years, and that is divided by the current value into 100. Then we'll be getting the reduction rate year. Now for the BAU calculation, we have used the CAGR formula. Should be known. Next, for the mitigation strategy. Now for different scope categories, we have set some mitigation strategies, starting with the scope 1. So the main emission was from the fleet vehicles of the company owned vehicles. So they can adapt electrification in their own fleet vehicles and switching to renewable resources for the facility operations. For scope 2, they can switch to solar or wind powers instead of the using of purchased electricity, which is high in emission and emission rate. For scope 3, they can ensure to capture the full data from the suppliers. Since they were in lack of the data from the suppliers, they can implement a guideline or regulation to report the proper emission details throughout their supply chain. They should address the missing data also, and for measures to reduce the spend on raw material, they can work on that also. Now next, focus on increasing the recycling rate. Since they are recycling only 10% of their products, so they can focus more on increasing the recycling rate in their operations. Also promoting circular economy practices in their product, as they are working in energy efficient appliances, so they can promote circular economy practices within their operation. Now, one more is there. While they are using aluminum and steel, they can go for the alternate metals which have the low emission factor, which can help them in reduction of emission in upstream category. Also, motivating employee to commute via company-owned EV vehicles that can be effective in reduction of emission via cars and the public transport like train or buses. Now, for the framework, we have suggested the company to go with the GRI framework in order of the acceptance of this framework throughout the world. Yeah, that's all.
Vineet, I have a question here.
Yes, Govardhan.
Can you go to scope 3 emissions?
Sure.
Yeah, here in the second line, raw material spend.
Yes.
It's this much dollars, right? And 1.2 tons of
Right.
CO2 per dollar. So
Yes,
how will
yes.
this one account to 12,000 only?
Nitya, can you elaborate
We
on that?
converted it into
Yes.
tons actually.
No, it's already given ton CO2 equivalent, right? It is already given in ton CO2 equivalent per dollar. So it should become 12 lakhs, right?
Yes. Just let me check the calculation part, please.
I think it is 12,000 only.
But see here, it's given
Move on,
emission factor is
I think
Move on in question
it
answer
is
only.
okay.
Question answer the question and close the matter.
okay.
What I mean, Vinit, don't stop. Let's finish this. Take the
Okay.
questions and then we will go move on. Okay?
So we are done with our presentation now.
Done. Achha, so question answer was going on. Sorry.
Yeah, Q&A was going on.
Okay.
So Govardhan was having a question in this. So
Fair. Today is not the day of feedback. Questions you have to answer and move on.
yes.
You have answered, right?
No, Nitya is checking with the calculation.
Fair.
I think there is some discrepancies in this section.
There were 3 people in this group, right?
Yes, sir. Bez was stuck with something at last. He was supposed to take that BAU and mitigation part.
Who was he?
Bez.
Badger. Okay.
He's traveling too.
Okay, fair.
Govardhan, can we provide this calculation?
So actually, I have converted
Yeah,
it into,
sure.
after multiplying it, I just converted into, divided it into tons, but I need to check that why I have, it is already there, the emission is 1.2 tons, but still I have converted it. So I need to check that. So I will
I
check and
think
then I'm
the emission factor was 0.12 tons per dollar.
if you see the PDF,
Yeah.
Shall I?
Yes.
Nitya, it's actually given for $1,000, so 12,000 is right. You can check the
I'm
PDF.
just opening, I'm trying
Yes,
to open the
we are
PDF.
Yeah,
checking
it
with
is
the
given.
PDF.
It is given for $1,001K. So we divide
Yes,
by 1,000.
then
So
yes,
12,000. Your
yes.
calculation is right actually.
3.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. Thank you so much for the help, actually. My laptop got stuck by.
Okay. Good. But this is what you should prepare always for.
1.2.
This is the real learning. This is the real learning that you will not have your technical support. You will not have your partner support. How you still perform will decide your fate. Good.
Vinit, what was the explanation for that?
So if you check the that PDF file now, so it is mentioned that it is for the 1,000 per. You can check the sheet now.
Yeah, it is given 1.2 ton
No,
CO2
no.
per dollar.
So can you please, Vineet, can you please share the screen? My laptop got stuck actually. So that can
Okay.
you share the PDF sheet?
Yes, it is. Is it visible?
Yeah, go down. See here. See this purchase of goods and things. Second row. $10 million total raw
Yes, you are
materials and
talking.
emission factor.
Okay. Let me check. Raw
One
material spend is 10 million. Then emission factor 1.2.
5 tons per dollar it is given, not $1,000.
Wait. We have checked it multiple times, but let's check one more time.
Okay, so basically,
Per dollar is
Okay, team Nitya, Vinit, you have only 1 minute to answer quickly.
yes. I think
so can you continue with the other PPT? We'll check and get back to this in the end.
Let's start. Let's
Can-
move for the
can
second one.
can we provide the calculation after?
Yeah,
Sure,
I
you
can
can do
provide
Yeah,
the
and do it later.
we will provide the calculation.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Let's go to the next. Who is going next? So Amit team is done, Vipsa team is done, Dibakar team is done, Praveen team is done. Karthik, Deepak, Omkar, and Vasist.
Okay, will do. Deepak and
I'll do first.
Okay, quick. Can you stop sharing your screen, Nitya? Or Praveen? Amit.
Done.
So good evening, everyone. I'm going to present my my report on the zero pathway for the ESG Protect Manufacturing company. So this is a summary of the data provided about the company. It's a global leader in energy efficient appliances, and it operates over several continents: North America, Europe, and Asia. So the main motivation according to the report is around intensifying regulatory pressure and growing investor scrutiny. So they have decided to uh, do carbon accounting and move towards net zero by 2050, with aiming to reduce 30% by 2030. So they also wanted to keep in mind the business as usual projection of 5% per year, while also meeting the energy demand in the continent like in Asia, where it is like 7% per year. So the way I have set up the boundary settings is around operational boundary, uh, focusing on the company's activity, and scope 3 on the value chain. So calculated total emission is shown here. So it's around 4 million and 40 million tons of CO2 for scope 1 and scope 2, and the highest emission is for scope 3 emission, which is around this one. So the baseline set is 2024, as the calculations are all done in different scopes for 2024 data. So the business as usual projection of 5% per year. So if the emission is so if the same emission continues along with 5% per year projection, it will give around this much, 1 crore tons of carbon dioxide by 2030. So we have to reduce 30% by 2030. So I mean, by the calculations, so if we have to reduce around 36 lakhs of tons of CO2 by 2030 in order to reach the 30% reduction target. And by long-term target, we have to reduce around so 3 crores. 3 crores. This comes at around by 2050. With the business as usual projection, the total emission comes around. I mean, it comes more than this 3 crore amount. However, I have included also like 30% reduction from 2030. So from 2030 to 2050, I have included the 30% reduction. So including that, it comes around like 3 crore total carbon dioxide and tons of CO2 emission, which has to be mitigated. So I've given like sector specific data, scope specific data. So we can see the scope 1 emission, as the report mentions, is mainly from 3 sources. Actually, natural gas and diesel generator emissions in facility A and B, and the other part is from the vehicles that uses diesel and gasoline. So they mentioned like diesel and gasoline with certain percentage. So what I've done is like from the total number of vehicles, I've split the vehicles into like 70%, 30% vehicles into diesel trucks and gasoline trucks, and I used the emission calculation to calculate the total emission. So the total emission comes around like 4,000 tons of CO2 per year, where only fleet vehicle contribute around 2,000 tons of CO2. So yeah, so this indicates that if we can convert from this diesel gasoline based vehicles, we could actually reduce the emission by like around 50%. This is like I mean, it's not it's a short-term goal. It can be easily achieved. So this is one of the mitigation strategies that could be used in the while suggesting some mitigation strategies. And so I've also shown the scope 2 emission. We can see that the higher emission is majorly from North America, the headquarters. So the total emission comes around 40,597 tons of CO2. So here, regarding Indonesia's emission factor, I have used like little old data. 2021 emission factor is available online from website climatic.io. So I have used their emission factor in order to calculate the total emission. So in scope 3, yes, scope 3 calculation. So I used different data for different categories. For purchase goods and services, even though there are like direct data on materials like aluminum and steel, I went for the pen-based method because it was giving an overall total amount, and going with material-based was giving very considerably lesser amount of emission. So since we are setting the baseline at 2024, I think setting a higher baseline is like it gives us a breather maybe, and maybe in the future, if you are going for carbon credit based systems, we can show significant CO2 reduction in CO2 emission. So thinking that in mind, I have gone for like spend based method for goods and services. I mean, calculating the scope 3 emission through spend based method. So business travels, I used the data from like commute. I ignored the remote workers data. I used only the commute data. So it's like it's a hybrid scope 3 emission calculation. Yeah, sorry. For emission employee commuting, I have used only the car. I mean, commute to employee vehicle data. So it is the tier 1 data. For business travel, I have added all modes of all the data available, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 data. And for product use phase, so the calculations I have in my Excel sheet. If you need, I can show you separately. So this is the calculated scope 3 emission data. So by business as usual projection, scope 3 emission is significant compared to other scopes. And here, in order to show some like this is not exactly the actual ton CO2 emission of scope 3. I have divided it by 10 so that I can compare it along with uh, other scope emissions just for an imaging for visualization purposes. Anyway, we can see that scope 3 emission increase is more significant than scope 2 or scope 1 increase. So effective value chain mitigation is needed in order to reach the targets like 30% reduction target as well as the net zero target by 2050. So mitigation strategies that I suggest is like so the primary target is purchase goods and services. So we could use the different 3 R's and 6 R methods like sourcing of purchased goods could be from green sources. We could rethink the product design such that we could use renewable sources as as an alternative for the energy efficient products that we design. And they were saying there is a 10% recycling of material, and they could increase this recycling material. Recycling as well as they could use those materials, and they could avoid wastage from the purchased goods and services. By adopting all the different R's, we could, I believe we could reduce the carbon dioxide emission from the purchased goods and service sector category. And product use phase is also a significant, it contributes significantly to the scope 3 emission. So uh, it could be mitigated by involving customers as well, like just like IKEA's take back program and promoting circular economy. So scope 2 emission would 44% is from North America and 51% is from Asian companies. So this could be in North America. I think it is easier to get LEED certification for the buildings, and so they could convert completely into like renewable resources, and that way 44% could be mitigated directly. And so the company CEO also has a plan of expanding it to the Indian country. So I would suggest starting with some like solar energy and wind farms in India. That way, they are contributing significantly towards developing countries' greenhouse gas mitigation as well as the own mitigation, which will increase their carbon credits. And so, so they can offset this carbon emission, which is significantly high for the company, by participating in carbon market participation, and also helping starting such solar farms, wind farms in a developing nation will also increase the reputation of the company. So eventually, if they're starting the manufacturing unit in India, it will be welcomed, as well as there could be more retail investors who will be ready to contribute towards the investment of the company. So in this way, I will recommend. So these are some of my suggestions as a expert, carbon accounting expert, towards the company while promoting the company's business as usual targets. With that, I would like to thank for this opportunity. So it was not very detailed like others, but I didn't have much time. So with this, thanks for this opportunity. Thank you. So if you have any doubts, you can ask.
I'm surprised no question came in your discussion. Just show slide once. I want everybody to notice something. Go back 3 slides. One more. one more. Okay. Oh, no. So you had only 3 slides in total? No, I think it was the next slide. Yeah. Those slides. Just before this. Before this, yes. Everybody look at this slide. Okay, that's it. Go ahead. That's it. Who is going next now? Deepak?
Deepak and team. Yeah. Me and Deepak will be presenting.
Yeah, Omkar and what I will do after this session, of course, I will not give the feedback, but I will give you the 6 or rather 5 critical pointers for such kind of presentation. Okay. 3 will be technical, 2 will be soft. Don't ever forget that.
So, we are presenting ESG Protect Manufacturing's carbon footprint hotspots and its mitigation plans. And so the overview is basically the businesses for energy efficient appliances. Exact appliances are not specified. Headquarters is in North America and global presence is in America, Europe, and Asia. In Asia, countries like Vietnam, China, and Indonesia are included. So the boundary setting we have considered is operational control, and yeah. So instead of showing all the calculations, we have just mentioned what is the scope, all the scope emissions. So scope 1 emissions from direct emissions by energy and vehicle fleet included is 2321 tons CO2 equivalent. Scope 2, that is only purchased electricity is mentioned, and that is 40,520 tons. And in scope 3, it is purchased goods and services, business travel, employee commuting, product distribution, and product use phase. That is 22,942 221.13 tons. In scope 3 emissions, the last part, that is end of life minus 10, the insufficient data was provided, so we didn't consider that for the calculations over here. Baseline year considered is 2024, and the company wants to achieve its net zero targets by 2050. So the business as usual cases we have considered only for scope 1 and scope 2, as some data from scope 3 was missing, and we thought it wouldn't be appropriate to consider the BAU scope for scope 3. Yeah. So if we consider business as usual and a 5% increase in business growth per year, by 2030, the scope 1 emissions would reach approximately 3,111 tons. And by 2050, that would go up to 8,256 tons. In scope 2, by 2030, in 2024, the emissions are somewhere around, as I've mentioned, it is 2030, that would be 54,301. I think the graph is depicting something. No, it's not. By 2050, that would climb up to 1,44,078 tons. Okay. From here on, Deepak will carry on with the presentation. Deepak.
Thank you, Omkar. Can we go to the next slide? So we have reported, so every reporting standard will require that we share the basis of reporting, which includes the key inputs, the key assumptions, the calculation methodology for scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So we came up with a few key inputs here in terms of organizational boundaries of what were considered, and since we used operational control approach, we included all the operations from all the countries that were part of the GHG boundary. Then we have activity data for fuel, electricity, travel production volumes, emission factors were provided for the key calculations. The baseline year is 2024. Targets, we have an interim target of 30% reduction by 2030 and a net zero target by 2050. So these are absolute figures that we have. And for business as usual, we've considered a 5% global scenario. Data gaps are in terms of the 40% supplier non-response factor and the Indonesian emission factor missing, which hampered the calculation. So these data gaps have been addressed or captured. Now we go on to the next slide where we've captured key assumptions. Next slide, Omkar.
Yeah.
So we've captured a key assumptions in terms of boundary setting, in terms of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 data, in terms of employee commuting, remote work, product use phase, and end of life emissions and business as usual growth rate. The next slide. Omkar. So we've also suggested to the client in terms of structuring its hierarchy more in terms of having an ESG oversight at every layer of activity. We also propose to the client that instead of having incentives given only to the CEO, the management or the board level, we suggested that the client incorporate incentivizing or rather incorporating ESG related incentives at every level of employment. We've got board of directors, we've got the leadership. They usually form an audit committee under which you have an ESG committee formed to oversee the entire ESG operations of the climate risk. You've got working groups, ESG sustainability teams, departmental license, external advisors, all driving towards your goal of net zero. Can we go to the next slide? Okay.
Yes.
More in terms of mitigation plan, we've got a plan for 2025, 2027, right up until 2050, where we have key milestones marked, and yes, we've kept it short because we just started this presentation at 6:30, so it's not complete.
Okay.
I think this is where we reached. We were still to build on it.
Okay. Any questions?
This was the best we could do.
And Deepak has mentioned it over here.
Okay, good. Let's go to any questions? Go to previous.
Omkar,
Okay.
Omkar,
Yeah,
hello. How did
yeah,
you
yeah.
arrive at 22 lakhs in the scope 3 emissions?
20,
Scope 3.
Okay, so we just considered all these aspects that I've mentioned over here.
Okay.
Uh,
But still it's so high. 22 lakhs, 94,221 tons CO2
yeah,
equivalent.
that is the value
No,
we
just,
got.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I'll probably share the calculation. We can cross check later.
Okay, you can cross check that thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Million is the problem. Million is the problem. The 10 million is the problem. Okay, good. Uh, any other question? Go to next slide, by the way. Okay, everyone note down this slide. Just look at this slide for a few seconds. And next to this slide as well. Not one next to this. After BAU stuff. After BAU, after 2 slides actually. Yeah. Good.
We actually didn't do the business as usual for scope 3 because some part of the data was missing.
I will give you 5 inputs. Remember those 5 inputs in case of GHG in future. Okay. Okay, let's go to if nobody has question, Vasist, last person to present.
So just give me 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sending a peer group. Just send me the groups of people who are there together. Both the names, only people who are together. Quickly in the chat box.
So should we
Sir,
add
मेरा
Bez
screen
also?
visible हो रहा है?
No, who has not given the presentation, not. Sorry, Vasist, you are saying something? Vasist,
सर अभी
1 minute to
सर
start
अभी आ रहा है?
and you have 5 minutes to finish. Yes, आ रहा है, कुछ तो आ रहा है, पर दिख नहीं रहा है कुछ भी. You have 1 minute to start and 5 minutes to close. So जल्दी.
सर I couldn't display this. पता नहीं क्या हो रहा है.
चैट बॉक्स में डालो, चैट बॉक्स में अपना डालो, कोहर्ट 10 में कोई आपको हेल्प कर देगा.
Okay.
Can somebody help him in running the slides?
I'll present it.
Okay, thank you, Karthik. And everyone, go ahead and put the
सर मैं अभी लैपटॉप से ज्वाइन किया, थोड़ा अलाउ कीजिए.
okay. So everybody has seen the groups. You have to fill this form. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 times, and fifth one will be happening now. So go ahead, open this form, fill it. Oh, you are joining from laptop. Okay. Everybody go ahead and fill it for all 4 groups. You should not be rating your own self. So if it is so write it. Praveen is not there. He left.
No, sir, I'm here. I'm here.
तो लिख दो ना, अपने group का नाम लिख दो, Praveen, and so people can rate you. And person who is rating, he cannot rate his own group. That's the only condition. Quick. Bhumika and Praveen, good.
Sir, am I visible now?
Yes. Just mute one of your system, both of your system. One you have to minimize the output, one you have to minimize the input of the sound. Yeah, go ahead now. It's visible. You are not you are not audible at all.
Am I audible, sir, now? Am I audible, sir, now? So, this is Vasist, and I have made a presentation of my own because I don't know which group I am in. So, this is the net zero pathway for manufacturing company who is into smart appliance manufacturers, that is ETMI. And this is company overview with 2000 plus employees, 70% on-site and 30% hybrid, revenue of 1.2 billion. So this is the basic target of the company, that is by
Assist, you have to start your
achieving
camera.
net zero by 2050 and baseline from 2024 and in term goal of 30% reduction by 2030.
Assist, you have to start your camera.
So, sir?
You have to start your camera, any of the mobile or your laptop with your camera you're comfortable with.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we are following the 5-step model for the mitigation and achieving the net zero for the ETMI. So these are the basic projections of emissions, baseline emissions for 2024. So where 86.8% of the emissions are from scope 3. And these are the different phases where emission is being released: usage phase, transport, supplier processing, and purchase goods and other forms of emissions. So this is the baseline target and strategy by which we have to reduce the, the company has to reduce the emissions by 30% by 2030 and achieving net zero by 2050. So this is the mitigation strategy for 2050. And these are the main points where we have to, where the company has to focus on shifting to renewable energy, both in the three different countries: Vietnam, Indonesia, and China. Supplier emission tracking program by introducing and implementation of a very good data collection program or ERP system. Product eco design improvements, both the production and also by design of the product. And as it's a smart appliances, so there shall be both plastic, metal, both involved in the product manufacturing. So there shall be an implementation of due diligence policy and strengthening it year to year, and implementation of the same due diligence policy to get the suppliers under various sustainability certifications like R2, GRS, and RCS, so that all the and shall be a measurable way for the emissions of the company. Then there shall be implementing for both suppliers and also both transporters, implementation of EV communicator incentives and also electrification of the total transportation fleet are a few of the mitigation strategies. And summary would be focusing on scope 3 and Asia electricity grid emissions. Towards integrate GHG metrics into corporate decision makings, and also implementation of ERP and also so that there'll be 100
Vasist, we lost you there. Okay, fine. So anybody has a question for Vasist?
Sir, can I answer Govardhan's question now by sharing my
Yes.
calculation sheet?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, okay. So, I have shared my screen. So basically, yes, it is not mentioned, but when the 12 lakh, the result is 12 lakh, emission is 12 lakh. So I checked it. So basically, in spend-based emission factor, it is calculated per 1,000 spend actually. So that's why I have divided it by 1,000. Govardhan, are you there?
Okay. Yeah.
I
Also
Can
have
you
like to
not.
show the
add,
screen?
also like to add one thing here. If you go for the triangulation, if you see that for the $1 expenditure, you are not going to have a 1.2 ton of CO2 emission per
Mhm.
aspect. Second aspect, for the appliance of the use cases, it cannot have a, a major emission coming from the material only. It has to be coming from the use
Mhm.
cases, product use cases. So that is not coming on that
Yes, that's
aspect.
why when it comes to 12 lakh, na, I rechecked it, and from here that I divided it by I got to know that on spend based emission factor is expressed generally per 1,000 spent actually.
Okay, sir.
Good. Good. Okay. So first of all, how did everybody has given the feedback to their peer?
No. So I and Vineet both separately needs to submit the feedback, or as a group we need to
No, no,
submit?
no. Everybody has to submit a feedback to their counterparty. Yeah. So there are 5 groups. One Vasist was alone. So 4 groups and one person, which is Vasist alone. So
So
you have
can
to-
we submit another response for same group? I miss actually. It was by mistake. Added
it will distort the output, but try it. Give it.
yes. Thank you.
We have to do for every group, other,
Every other group.
Ach, okay.
Everybody will be doing 4 groups in total. So 4 times you are submitting it. How did you find their presentation? Okay. Meanwhile, as you are filling the form, how many of you have done already? Start your camera now. We need only 5 minutes. I will not waste today time. We will have another feedback session where after I do the analysis of your performance, we'll sit together. That's a kind of alumni meet, and we also do the induction for new people coming in. So that time we will be calling you and having this feedback session. And I will be telling you that which are the area which you should be specifically careful about. Clear? That we will do it later. But if everybody has completed, start your camera quickly, and we will have a quick suggestion, do's and don'ts session quickly. Everyone, go ahead and start your camera. Once you start your camera, I will understand that you have done the feedback. So it says Vasist, 2 places Vasist, and both are closed. Avipsa, Karthik. This is the last day phase. So make it much more, with much more smiles. Okay, some people are really not happy with the session. Quick, Karthik, Vasist. Okay, Vasist is there. Chalo. This goes in the group. Hopefully, I can find the group now. Cohort. Okay. There is cohort 10. Okay. Okay, now, quick ones. 90% of the people have done justice to their work. I do understand this was last day of week, last day of month, or first day of month, whatever. Reason can be thousands. But will you be getting this opportunity again? That's my question to all of you. Will you be getting this opportunity to play in a safe ground? Nobody judging you. Everybody is struggling with their own problem. Who did the first presentation, they can come and ask you question. But in general, everybody has, struggling here. And hence, this was the least, judging area for you. And all of you are friend now. And of course, friend in sustainability for life now. So tell me, all of you, unmute yourself. Was giving excuse have helped you? I do understand their life happens. For me also today life happened. I started after 2 minutes, isn't it? So I do accept that we miss some stuff. But did we not lose something by not doing justice to it? And only 10% people, not everyone. Like Bej, I am not happy with. Irrespective of who was prepared or not prepared, he should have come. People who said that they are not happy with answers, yeah, or end not completed. Vasist, I was thinking your mitigation to be out of world. Given that you are doing carbon accounting, right? You are doing carbon credits. So I was expecting much more louder than what it is right now, one pager. Same goes with Deepak and Omkar. You guys would have done little more, half an hour more, and it would have been, cruise. Because what I liked about their presentation, they brought one more perspective. How many of you saw his presentation carefully? The only thing which they did right, and that was one slide. Rest of it, of course, everybody did it. Have you watched that slide?
Incentivizing?
Sorry?
Incentivizing?
No, the oversight.
Inputs, key inputs.
Yeah, ESG oversight and key inputs. Of course, key inputs was taken from the case, but ESG oversight was completely out of context, but added a value. Yeah, Divankaji, your slides again. So what we should have done, did our own work, relaxed, and you, of course, at your presentation time, you should have presented it, but watch the other. The massive learning happens today because you have watched the others, not your own. So the major gainer today is Govardhan. Yeah, he did first and he was just watching everybody's. He was not focusing on his slides. He was focusing on others, what they are producing. So even though he gone wrong, right, doesn't matter. At least he learned 10 time. Huh? He learned 10 time today. जिसने भी प्रेजेंटेशन किया लर्निंग किया और ये सबके साथ हुआ है सबकॉन्शियसली एवरीबडी डिड दैट बट वी डिड इट सबकॉन्शियसली इन द हेस्ट ऑफ rushing towards our presentation. So that's the one thing. Never forget, if you are putting into competition yourself, uh, it is always good to watch them. Okay. Now, some quick low-hanging stuffs which we could have easily cruised along. First, ensure the data accuracy. Okay, now there was a challenge. Devankaji, you started with saying that this data is not available. Always remember, this was, of course, we are a cohort, so you can tell that. When we are talking to department or acting as a consultant, the words matter the most, specifically related to data. Somebody has done a very good presentation on data accuracy itself. Who was that? Karthik, right? That how he will ensure that future data will be very clean. Wonderful job. Okay. So data is the place where you have to keep your team happy because they are not team, they are stakeholders for you. If they do not give you the data, you are useless in that company. Correct? At least as a GHG accountant, I'm saying. Correct or wrong? How many of you agree to that? Yeah. And hence, and if he muddle up with the data and you missed it by one notch, trust me, you will be out. He has nothing to do with that. You are responsible for his data. Hence, data accuracy he will play and your job will be at stake. Because nobody will listen to you. They will not say that he gave, you took. Nobody cares. What is your fail-safe mechanism which proves that you are smarter than any data provider? And somebody talked about that we will look into data accuracy, emission factor discussion. Somebody in morning messaged me कि मुझे यहाँ का data नहीं मिल रहा है, इंडोनेशिया का. What I should do? Always ask question. Even the last minute, send an email to CEO and ask him a question before you come to the presentation. Nobody will mind. This is one of those learning about data. Data is king and most complex part. Okay. And it is your responsibility to ensure the accuracy of data. And if you don't have data, don't tell that you have not given me. Rather, you just revert it back saying that means this is what we do and we follow that with all assertiveness in world. We tell them it is your problem, but indirectly. We tell them in absence of this data, we have not considered this data for this reporting period. सेम ही बात है, कोई अलग बात नहीं है. लेकिन जैसे मैंने ये वर्ड यूज किया ना, सामने वाला को लगेगा इसने मेरे को प्रोटेक्ट कर दिया है. नेक्स्ट टाइम वो जान लगा के डेटा निकाल के आपको देगा. कितने लोग इससे अग्री करते हैं इस बात से, बेस्ड ऑन योर प्रोफेशनल एक्सपीरियंस? या कभी नहीं बोलना है. इफ द डेटा इज नॉट देयर, always, first of all, it is your responsibility to get data out from them. It is my responsibility to get data out from them, not their responsibility. इसीलिए तो 1 घंटे में फिल करके भेजते हैं और हमारी इंडस्ट्री को धक्का लग रहा है, राइट? हमें करना है ये कोशिश कि उनको लगे कि हम डेटा के लिए उनको परेशान नहीं कर रहे, रादर डेटा विल हेल्प हिम टुमारो. अभी जैसे कोई आज किया, एक बहुत अच्छा काम किया किसी एक और ग्रुप ने, उसने सर्कुलरिटी पे काम किया, वेस्ट पे, कि वेस्ट में टारगेट करूंगा, रीयूज रिसाइकिल. वो फार्मूला जाके चिपका दिया उसने, कुछ किया नहीं, चिपका दिया बस. और ये मेरा अलग सजेशन आएगा, अभी मैं जब टेक्निकल में जाऊंगा तो आई विल सजेस्ट यू दैट हाउ टू प्ले विथ सजेशंस. ओके, सजेशंस शुड बी ऑलवेज इन फॉर्म ऑफ क्वेश्चन, ऑलवेज इन फॉर्म ऑफ चैलेंजिंग द मैनेजमेंट. यहां पे आप मैनेज क्वेश्चन कर सकते हो. व्हेन यू आर सजेस्टिंग समथिंग, डोंट सजेस्ट. किसी को अच्छा नहीं लगता सजेशन, किसी को नहीं. हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर को भी अच्छा नहीं लगता, लेकिन सबसे सुनेंगे वो और फिर एक्शन लेंगे, राइट? एंड हेंस दैट इज एग्जैक्टली यू शुड बी डूइंग. नेवर सजेस्ट, आस्क अ क्वेश्चन इन फॉर्म ऑफ सजेशन दैट इफ यू डोंट डू दिस पार्ट, डू यू थिंक यू कैन गो टू नेट जीरो? Just rephrase this word and you have your question and suggestion together. राइट? पॉसिबल ही नहीं है ना. किसी ने स्कोप 3 की बात करी कि स्कोप 1 and 2 को आई विल मिटिगेट, 3 को नहीं करूंगा, राइट? इट इज मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट पार्ट. लेकिन आपको बताना पड़ेगा आप क्यों नहीं करोगे, क्योंकि 4 डेटा है, 3 नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते हो. ओके, आपको बोलना पड़ेगा, जस्टिफिकेशन देना पड़ेगा कि रॉ मटेरियल का डेटा में थोड़ा मुझे ट्रबल है. 120 मिलियन होगा कि 220 मिलियन होगा, मीन्स 220 लैक्स होगा या डबल होगा अमाउंट, वो एक चीज देखने वाली है. नाउ, quick suggestions which you should take it forward. Data and data accuracy is your responsibility. You are always open to use the large data, the national inventory, the IPCC, EPA. You are always, you can fall back with that. But without data, it is undermining your credibility. ये किसी का प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, आपका प्रॉब्लम है, याद रखिएगा. कोई नहीं सुनता है बोर्ड में, कोई भी बोर्ड में नहीं सुनेगा कि क्या हुआ आपके पहले आने के पहले. आपका रिजल्ट वहां पे बात करेगा. सेकंड, स्कोप जब आप बात कर रहे हो और बाउंड्री जब सेट कर रहे हो, ओके, एक्सप्लिसिट रहिए कि वाई आई हैव कंसिडर इन 3. अब किसी के स्लाइड में मुझे दिखा है, मैं नाम ले लेता हूं, कार्तिक, आपने क्या किया है, टीयर 1, 2 एंड 3 तीनों को ऐड कर दिया है. क्यों? बिजनेस ट्रैवल में थोड़ा Karthik, I have seen on one of your slide has tier 1 data plus tier 2 data plus tier 3 data. Why did you added all 3? Think about it. I'm not asking, not judging you, but think about it, why you did that. Okay. So that is another second pointer. Third pointer, always use the standardized methodology. For example, if somebody is using a circularity, talk about that ISO which you are referring to. Or talk about your GHG protocol booklet, because you are doing GHG protocol 3 booklets, right? One is your organization, the revised one, the corporate one for setting the boundary, consolidating the data. Second, you are using a scope 3 technical one. Scope 2 में भी आप use कर सकते हो, but mostly energy company use करती है. So when you brought in LCA, talk about it, that I will target 67. Clear? Nobody has discussed, even Amit. I didn't hear. Did you talk about projects 14064-2 when we were talking about
No. I was referring to product basically LCA
LCA
part,
कर
not
रहे हैं?
the.
तो नेक्स्ट टाइम से आपने बोला ना मिटिगेशन ऐसे करूंगा, तो उसके पीछे प्रोजेक्ट लगा दो कि आई विल डू 14064-2 X stuff. Third, always avoid over claiming the mitigation impact. You, all of you, because the time you didn't do it. Okay, I understand that. But all of you had a chance to showcase that glide path. What I have seen, everybody has shown the growth path. How many of you have seen growth? सबने बताया है growth कि BAU में 5% होगा, 7% होगा, और वो भी जस्टिफिकेशन मुझे दो ही आदमी में देखा, BAU 7% एंड BAU 5%. Why you have taken 5%? दोनों दिया हुआ था ना, so you have to
Yes.
justify which one you are taking. Okay, दो जगह पेज नंबर 6 एंड 7 पे भी इशू था. किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है मेरे से मॉर्निंग में, ठीक है, मैंने उनको इस रिस्पॉन्ड भी किया. वो रिस्पॉन्ड सबके लिए डाल दो आप ग्रुप में जिसको भी वो रिस्पॉन्स मिला है. Yeah, put it up for everybody references. So that's another thing. Nobody has shown the net zero targets. So you are talking about your baseline. You are also talking about you will mitigate, but you didn't show how will you reach. Somebody has talked about SBTI like that. I saw somebody was talking about SBTI. But if you would have just shown that graph कि BAU है, अब इसको ये साल मैंने छोड़ दिया, नेक्स्ट ईयर ऑनवर्ड somebody has done very good calculation 2035 में वन, वो जो कंपाउंडिंग वाला लगा के कैलकुलेशन किया था, राइट. बट बी केयरफुल विद द कंपाउंडिंग नंबर्स, दैट व्हाट शुड बी योर स्क्वायर, 6 होगा कि 5 होगा कि 25 होगा, वो नंबर बहुत केयरफुली डालो. या एंड देन यू कैलकुलेट द नंबर्स एंड शो इट टू देम दैट लुक दिस इज व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू अचीव. तो उससे क्या होगा, आपके प्रोजेक्ट को वेट मिलेगा कि ये बंदा ऐसे ही कुछ भी नहीं फेंक के जा रहा है. ही इज टेलिंग बिकॉज ही नोज. यही एक छोटा सा गैप है आप लोगों की लर्निंग में अभी, और एक्सपीरियंस पर्सन हु इज सिटिंग आउटसाइड. सो जस्ट कवर दिस अप इफ रिक्वायर्ड. टाइम मिले, अभी कल 2 दिन छुट्टी है, एक बार फिर से जाके मिटिगेशन को देखो, सबके लिए रिकमेंडेड है. I know life, everybody has a life now and you got a free bird. 2 दिन की छुट्टी है, मजे करो. मंडे को वी आर मीटिंग फॉर प्रोजेक्ट्स, वी आर स्टार्टिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स, राइट. सो मंडे को विल मीट आफ्टर इन इवनिंग. बट इफ यू कैन, आई विल सजेस्ट एक बार उसको लिंक करके देखो, मजा आएगा आपको. एंड दैट्स द ओनली गैप बिटवीन यू एंड द पर्सन हु इज ऑपरेटिंग. क्योंकि अगर आप प्रोजेक्ट करोगे तो वो सब मैं आपको टेस्ट करने वाला हूँ. That testing will happen. If you bring your own project, then there is no problem. But if you are taking my project, then you will be tested on that small stuff as well. Okay. So these were few pointers I thought you guys should be knowing. उसके बाद assumptions, what Deepak did, and that shows, yeah, when you come from Big Four, एक ही चीज सिखाई जाती है, टोपी अपने सर पे नहीं रखना, टोपी हमेशा क्लाइंट के सर पे. बिग फोर में ये नॉर्मल कल्चर है. दे विल नेवर से दैट डिले इज हैपनिंग बिकॉज ऑफ देम. ले ही नहीं सकते ना, वो ब्लेम वो ले ही नहीं सकते, उनका बॉस उनको खा जाएगा. सो ऑलवेज पुट द assumptions अप फ्रंट एंड क्लियर. क्लियर, ठीक है. ये एक और आप लोग सब में थोड़ा मिसिंग दिखा है. जो भी आप एजम्पशन कर रहे हो क्लियरली डालो कि सर ये डेटा नहीं था, आई हैव एज्यूम्ड दिस. सर ये पॉइंट मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा था, आई एज्यूम्ड दिस. वो लिख दीजिए एक पेज में, ठीक है. Using, I liked Dibankar ji and who was the team member with Dibankar? Sorry,
Govardhan.
Govardhan, yeah, Govardhan. Now both of them has done one good thing. They have done Excel. तो उन्होंने फर्स्ट से ही दे वर रेडी. एक्सेल चाहिए ही चाहिए इस तरह के प्रोजेक्ट में. विदाउट एक्सेल यू कांट ऑपरेट. प्रवीण, आप में केवल वो आपने एक एक अलग अलग सब, प्रवीण और भूमिका ने एक एक अलग अलग स्लाइड पे डाला था. दैट बिकम्स टू कंफ्यूजिंग और इसीलिए आपका टाइम गया है. दैट्स व्हाई आई
So
रिमाइंडेड.
sorry sir, we also have Excel with detailed calculation and explanation.
दिखाने का
Yes, sir.
मालूम कैसे चलेगा मुझे, ये बताओ. हाउ द
Okay.
पर्सन हु इज
Okay,
सीइंग ही विल
sir.
थिंक दैट देयर इज नो बैकग्राउंड. नो, अगर
No,
software
we have total with all the explanation where we what assumption we have taken, what factor we have assumed. पूरा साइट का रेफरेंस के साथ पूरा एक्सेल भी है हमारे पास, पूरा डिटेल
मैट्रिक बता रहा हूँ,
एक्सप्लेनेशन.
तो मैं ट्रिक बता रहा हूँ, देखो आपके पास सब है, लेकिन assumption क्या है?
राइट सर,
Yes,
assumption ये है
sir.
कि हमने नहीं
नेगेटिव हो गया ना
बनाया,
आपके लिए,
We didn't
नेगेटिव हो
put it
गया।
in the PPT. Yes.
और
राइट
पीपीटी में
सर,
सब अलग अलग है, तो ऑब्वियस है कि आपके पास
करेक्ट
एक्सेल नहीं है।
करेक्ट।
आप प्रेजेंट कर रहे हो एक एक कैलकुलेट करके, ऐसा अजम्पशन आ रहा है, ये मेरा
गॉट इट
कैलकुलेट आया
सर,
होगा
गॉट
ना।
इट।
मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ कि नेक्स्ट टाइम आपको क्या ध्यान रखना है। ये फीडबैक
पक्का सर,
Sure,
नहीं है,
पक्का।
sir.
फिर भी बता रहा हूँ, ठीक है, क्योंकि बोलिए
हम्म
फिर याद रहेगा मंडे को कि नहीं। सो दिस वन जस्ट बी केयरफुल, शो इट एक्सेल सीट, शो योर बैक एंड कैलकुलेशन। जो हमने 10th 12th में किया ना, लाइफ लॉन्ग वही यूज होता है। वो सीबीएसई की जो मार्किंग सिस्टम है ना, दैट्स अ लर्निंग, स्टेप पे मार्क मिलता है, लाइफ लॉन्ग एफर्ट कहीं नहीं जाएगा। हाँ, लोग केयर नहीं करते हैं, आप उसकी वजह से फ्रस्ट्रेट हो गए लाइफ में, दैट्स अ पार्सल ऑफ योर लाइफ, दैट्स अ पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ योर लाइफ, ओके। फ्रस्ट्रेशन इज पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ योर लाइफ। लेकिन आप नहीं दिखाओगे स्टेप्स, तो भगवान को भी नहीं मालूम आप क्या कर रहे हो। मैं तो इंसान ही हूँ, ठीक है। सो देखते हो ना, बहुत लोग जाके रोते हैं मंदिर में, फिर दूसरे दिन बड़े हंसी खुशी बाहर दिखेंगे। क्यों करते हो ऐसा? वाई दे डू गो टू टेम्पल एंड क्राई? या बिकॉज दे थिंक दैट भगवान इज गोइंग टू सी देम मोर इफ दे क्राई। या ऐसा होता नहीं है, लेकिन बोलते हैं कि आजकल बच्चे को माँ भी दूध नहीं पिलाती अगर बच्चा रो नहीं रहा, राइट, ये विल बी इग्नोर्ड। सो ये सब थोड़ी सजेशंस है। आई नो यू गाइज नो बेटर देन दिस, but I thought specifically in GHG, if you will miss these stuffs which are very very small, I might not have covered, right, in talking. थोड़े से जार्गन यूज करने की जरूरत आप सबको है अभी भी। मतलब जार्गन यूज किया नहीं जाता, लेकिन आप जो लेवल पे बात कर रहे हो वो प्लेन है, थोड़ा सा यूज करो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड के डिस्कशन का, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इक्विवेलेंट टन्स ऑफ का, दैट मिस्टेक ऑफ, कहाँ गई वो प्रियंका, या मिस्टेक नहीं है, बट शी वॉज नॉट एबल टू क्लैरिफाई इट क्लियरली इन द फर्स्ट गो, सी मिस द चांस। बोर्ड थोड़ी बैठेगी 1 घंटे आपके लिए कि लिख के लाओ, कभी कभी बैठ भी जाते हैं, बट डोंट एक्सपेक्ट देम टू सिट फॉर यू, ओके, दे विल से ओके वी विल सी नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर। एक क्वार्टर डिले हो गया, आप बाहर हो जाओगे कंपनी से। सीईओ अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकता ना, 3 महीने में दूसरा कंसल्टेंट लेके काम करा लेगा वो, ठीक है। सो just a small feedback, rest of it was perfect. I think the feedback was important. Praising I can do on Monday, praising I will do Monday, okay. So keep this with the harshness, because this is very important for you. पिल बिटर ही होगा, वो मीठा वाला पिल होगा तो होम्योपैथी हो जाता है, पता नहीं काम कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है, राइट। चलिए, बेस्ट ऑफ लक। एवरीबडी डिड अ गुड जॉब। 90% तो मतलब अनडाउटेबली दे हैव वर्क वेरी हार्ड। 10% पीपल आई नो दे लाइफ हैपेंड विद देम, बट नेक्स्ट टाइम प्लीज डोंट डू दैट फॉर योर सेल्फ, ठीक है। आपको फिर से अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिलेगी। गुड जॉब, कार्तिक हैज डन वेल, इवन वशिष्ठ डिड गुड, बट लास्ट पार्ट आई वाज एक्सपेक्टिंग, माय एक्सपेक्टेशन विद वशिष्ठ वर वेरी हाई, okay. He would have brought those carbon accounting mechanisms, shown how it is applicable here, yeah, and that would have helped. Carbon credit mechanism, okay. With that, we have come to end of the session. Any question you have now, ask, or we will see you on Monday evening 7 p.m. You start the project, have the feedback, and maybe a welcome session for a few more people who are coming in the next batch. So networking, basically networking. This time we are having a very senior guy from ENY, Bangalore. So Deepak, you will get to meet him. He's CFA ESG. He's GARP SCR. Yeah, and still he came to my 2 day session, and he's so much impressed that he joined our program. His GARP SCR
Wow.
is very senior guy, very senior. Okay, and he is joining this program on Monday evening. He will be coming. So people will get to at least meet him. 2 3 people only will come like last time, but whoever will come, you will be able to network. With that, see you. Best of luck.
So sorry, what about the CFA class tomorrow?
That is starting at 11:30. 11:30. अच्छा, अभी तक गया नहीं है ग्रुप में.
So will I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
the
you
link?
can come, Deepak. You can come. No worries. You have joined, right? अभिप्सा ने गलती से ज्वाइन किया था, तो अभिप्सा I heard that wants to shift to something else. No worries, अभिप्सा. ठीक है.
Sir, I was checking whether you have shared module 1, module 2. slides.
Very smart guy. He's not going to leave. He's not going. You will get it. When I have promised it, you will get it. First, I am seeing that how to give it without giving it. You will get
Okay,
it.
sir. Okay.
You will get it. My team is very very reluctant. They look जो बनाते हैं ना उन पे ज़्यादा फोकस करता है. उनको चेंज करना पड़ेगा next time के.
हाँ हाँ.
So
Yes,
because
sir.
color combination वो नहीं work करता है ना, branding का issue है.
Mm-hmm.
But they will give.
Yeah.
They have promised by tomorrow they will sort it out and they will show to me what they are sharing and they will share with you. Okay.
Okay,
Vivek,
sir.
I have
क्या हुआ
just
आपको मिला? हाँ
Vivek.
बोलो गोवर्धन.
Do you even give certification for BRS or GRI?
Yes, we do. We do. That is
Okay.
coming means next to next week.
What are the charges for that?
Similar charge. It's always bare minimum. It's always
Okay.
bare minimum, and that is even still it is 9 days or 10 days program. Still, we have not increased it to month because there is no scope to increase it to month.
Okay.
So it's a boot camp. It fits in the pocket. Don't worry.
No, I'm just asking because after if we can get BRS certificate, we can do ESG consultancy. So
No, but you have to understand. Yet, not government has decided who will do the audit. Who will
okay.
do the audit yet not have been decided. Okay, they are opening it. Earlier, it was only restricted to chartered accountant. Chartered accountants are still fighting, but government
Okay.
CP has come in media and said that they will allow anybody who has the
Okay.
capability and can do the assurance. And that is why that guy from ENY is coming.
Okay.
He wants
Okay.
to work in assurance.
Yeah, can you please update regarding that thing, GRI and
It is
BRS?
happening. It is happening second to third week. Okay. Right now we are sitting on fourth. So another 15 days you will hear the news. That is what our
Sure,
website
sure.
is asking.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So you will get that news.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Vivek.
Pleasure to have
Thanks
you
for the
all.
session.
See you on
Thanks for the session.
feedback on Monday. Good things on Monday. Today was bad things. Okay.
No, these are suggestions. It's not bad things.
Yes, sir. These are important things.
These are
Yes, definitely.
indeed.
Right.
Chalo. Best of